Okay, I'm sorry for the technical issues, but we're back. And I was showing you what I was thinking that it was not really working. And it was just that the beginning of this structure was maybe too far in the back. So I was just putting this structure a bit more closer to us. And I also want to give this bit more of a flat surface, I guess. And with our fingers we can always help to smooth all the structures. And remove the excess if needed. Yeah, of course I see that is not completely the same as we have. But you know what, I think this one will work. Hmm. Maybe in the illustration is a bit more higher, like this. Okay, maybe not that much, like the face is not looking down. Okay, I believe that works. Then we're gonna do the same process again, just turning the light off and turning my individual light in, like this. Do you see, this is kind of like the light contrast that we want to achieve. Let me just maybe tilt it a bit. But no, I think it's amazing. Let's take a picture of this one. And then we're gonna do the same procedure that we did with the previous one. I'm gonna use this one as a reference. Then yeah, lights back on. And we turn this one off. And I'm gonna show you the picture that I took. Perfect. So we have this picture. So now we can move this one away. And we can go ahead and move our drawing closer to us. Then with this reference we're gonna go ahead and elaborate. Okay. And we can put it on this side. We can make it a bit bigger. And then we can start elaborating on that. maybe the angle of the, like the inclination of the body was too harsh. But I think we can still work on that. What do we see with this? That shading part is gonna be like this would be our line, and then our shading is gonna be on the right side of that. And then just because of this, this is gonna prolong until like here, something like this. Yeah, this is our sketch. We don't have to worry a lot about what technique we're using to shade. We don't have to worry about a lot about the texture on the paper, or if it doesn't look super refined. Okay. What else do I see here? Okay, it's catching a bit of light here, but when it goes behind the arm, then it's not. So then we have shadow there. Even like starting from here maybe. And in here we have like our darkest part of the drawing. Then we can take it all the way back. When we have the leg, we see it's catching the light. But when we continue on the tail, we see all this part is in the shadow. And like this part would be shadow. This down part would be. And then yeah, I know these are not gonna be like the fingers on the final illustration, but we can still work on them a bit. Okay, we can also remember that whenever we have a shadow, we have midtones, we have core shadow, we have reflection lights. So it's not all the same tone, it's not going to be a solid gray, but we can also play with it. So if we see this part over here is kind of the cast shadow of this structure. So the head is going to create this cast shadow. But the shadow here is going to be the core shadow of the animal. So then this part is going to be darker. And then in here the head is also casting a bit of a shadow here. And then we can play with the gradient to make it a bit lighter. And then this structure is all in the shadow. And the light, it occurs kind of like the opposite of this one. What we're having is this part of the face is very highlighted. And then this cavity is always dark, so let's keep it dark. And then when we go closer to this, yeah, this is gonna be catching the light, but on the other side. This part is catching a bit of light. And let's play with the transition here. Like in this part, the whole head is on the shadow. But there's a division here when the head ends where the shadow can be a bit stronger. And just as I mentioned, just remember that not because it's on the light means that it's completely white. Okay, the arm of my reference is a bit tricky because it didn't stay in place. But we can try to reconstruct something. I'm doing the one on the back. Just assuming like down part is gonna have a shadow and the upper is gonna have the light. And we could have something like that. And then with our other arm, then I would say maybe this part would be in the shadow and this part. Bit like this, no? Yes, I think this is how it would work. And then if we keep going to the back, then yes, I can make this a bit smoother. Also going a bit with the direction of the body. And this is just to work out the transition. And to remember that we have reflection light down our part of the body. And then just to remember that this is something that goes around. We can do a bit of a light, a bit of a shadow coming from the other side. And continuing to the tail, like just remember like the shape of the tail, then working on the shadow. So that would be pretty much what we can do. I mean, in this point we can always keep working on it, no? Just look with the tool that we were using today. We were able to understand how the light was working on these two individuals that I have on my sketch. And then only doing this, it already gives us a placement of the objects in the space, because when we were having only the outline, then it felt not realistic at all or not real at all. Yeah, if I see it like this, I understand that I can still darken some spots. And I can still work on some details that are gonna help us make this drawing even more and more realistic. When we are reconstructing, yeah, an image from different, like a specimen from different images that we gather, then this can be a common mistake that we don't understand, and then maybe we're using, if I'm using different images, then maybe I'm using different types of lighting, and then that's just gonna be confusing for the spectator, and even confusing for you when you're drawing, because it mm, cannot be super consistent, and we want to be consistent in this exercise. That's why we were taking so long to start doing the final illustration. I'm also trying to give you time to do your sketch because I really want you to be sure when we start working on it. But you're just adding some details and just working on some gradients is gonna make such a difference. Such a difference. Okay, just wanna do this maybe a smoother transition. Or maybe I think the shading is not going that far down. Maybe I believe it would work something like this. That we can just like this. Yep. So this was today's exercise in which we use the sculpture to understand how light is hitting specifically our animals. Now something is happening with my camera. Let me see. Okay, I just want from you as a homework for next class to have this sketch on a paper where we're gonna do our final illustration. Now that we have the light and shadow study, we can apply these first layers on it. What do I want you to take into account for these first layers? That now that is going to be our final illustration, I want you to think of the trace, and I want you to think of how gentle you're being with with your pencil. And it was something that we were working previous class, in which I want you to be very aware of how soft you're doing it, and how smooth you're doing it. So we're not gonna have a super dark spot that is not gonna be able to be erased. So I want you to think of that, not to go too hard with the pencil, not to go too crazy, just keep control of it. That's mainly what I want you to work on, to be able to control how the shadow is going in your drawing. And there's a couple of ways that we can use to draw this in a new sheet, and that's a technique that I already showed you, that is basically going over it with a tracing paper. So then we would have a tracing paper like this, and then we trace on this side. I would, as I recommend before, I would trace with a fine liner maybe. And I'm not gonna do it all, but I'm just gonna show you real fast. You trace on this side of the paper, right? And then on the other side of the paper, you're gonna, with your pencil, that it can be rather a dark one that has a point, we go over these lines. We go over the lines on the other side of the paper, so we don't have a mirror image. Then you turn it again, and with a pencil that's a bit harder, then you trace on that. And then you have option number 1 to trace your drawings. Option number 2, that maybe not all of you have the option at home, but I'm gonna give you a possibility. Option number 2 would be using a light table. What's a light table? So I'm gonna show you. What I have here is one of mine. This is a light table. How does it work? It has power on bottom, and then I have the illustration. So let's say that I have this one here. So I had a bird under that. That's what you're seeing there. Let me erase that real fast. But the whole point of this light table is that you don't have to trace it on another paper to trace it back on your paper. because what you can do is just have in your drawing, then you put it on top of the table, and on top of it you're just gonna use a white sheet, which is the one where we wanna have the final illustration. So then on top of this I put this one, and then I can just trace it on this one, you see? Then we're just keeping one step with this light, and this also allows you the possibility to have it higher. So then I have more details, and I can just go ahead and trace it. And the final option, yeah, I know everyone doesn't have one of these at home. Maybe you do. If you don't have one of these, there's always options, you know? Okay, this is just a great tool because then you just put it off and then you have the image already on this one. But if you don't have either of these ones, what you can do is that you grab like a cooking recipient, like where your mom cooks the lasagna, but it has to be a glass one. So you can put a light underneath, and then you have a light box, just pretty much like this one. And if you don't have either of those, you can always use a window in the middle of the day. If you have a lot of lighting, then you just use your window, and you can trace your drawing. So yeah, those are the options that I'm giving to you today. My camera is still... Okay, we're back. Okay, so those are some of the options that I wanted to present to you, so you can go ahead and trace your sketch, and you can come next class with your drawing on the paper where you're gonna do your final illustration, and with the first layers that are gonna be the ones we did today in this study of light and shadow, but on the paper where you're gonna do your final illustration. And then next class we're gonna be working different things, like more details, like texture, like other elements that can be important in the layout, like it can be the environment where they're standing, maybe a tree trunk or whatever you prefer to work on. Then we're gonna be drawing these things. Let me just check for a bit. To the chat. Because yeah, if at any time you have any questions, if you have anything you want to ask me, you can send me a message. You can leave a message here on the app, or you can also send me a message to my private, to my Instagram, and then you can ask different stuff about this class. Alright. So that'll be all for today. Thank you so much for joining. I hope to see you next class. I hope to see all of your sketches. I'm very excited to be working on this with you. And don't remember to send what you've done on this class so I can give you feedback on it. You can find me on my Instagram, that's Lina Pardo Carvajal, and you can also find me with Meet Art Link. We have a share post, so you can just go ahead and look for my Insta account there. And you can send me a message with what you were working on in this class, and we can talk about it, okay? Thank you once again for joining the class, and yeah, see you next time.